from society. Now I clearly see my victory as a face for great mystery. Of my life that lives through me, and the dark reflections from society. Now she comes forth, Persephone resurrected. I rise again.
Hi, Colin Davis, ShadowTechAlchemy.com. This is the Solutio podcast on August 4th, 2026. And the websites are ShadowTechAlchemy.com, SolutioPodcast.com, SolutioAlchemy.com, MelissaMariMovie.com, MelissaMariMusic.com. Got a lot of websites. And so there's actually a bunch more, but some of those redirect to Shadow Tech Alchemy right now. But yeah, so here we are again, our weekly broadcast. And today our broadcast is titled The Modern Alchemist. And, you know, at least today I have some notes to go by. And so I'm going to riff on these notes. And I encourage all of you guys, as always, to put your comments in. It might take me a little bit to get to them, but I always get to them. And usually after I'm done talking for a little while, we kind of go back and forth and becomes a good conversation. So the more we get from you guys, the better the show is, actually. So let us see here. Where are we going to start? And I got, someone says, Jennifer says, is there a link to give donations? If you want to do that, Jennifer, it's greatly appreciated, and you could just contact me. Just go to the shadowtechalchemy.com website and send me a message. So I guess before I get started, I'll give you just a couple of updates as to what I got going on, what's been going on in the last week or so. One is if you go to the link on the website for papers. I have a papers link where I put my white papers up there. There's a new paper up there now. It's called The Shaman and the Sacred Life Artist. And it is an exploration of the archetype of the shaman, and how that started, and then how that broke out into specialists, and then where in that, under that umbrella, is what Melissa called the life artist, or what I'm calling the sacred life artist. Where is that? Where is that under that umbrella? And so that's what this paper is about. I'm sharing with you my exploration of that subject and where I'm placing this. And then at the end, I give you an example of what I'm calling sacred life art, what that looks like, what that could look like in my life, in the time that I had with Melissa. And so then you can read that and you can be like, okay, this is what he's talking about. It's a certain way of alchemical living, of conscious artistry, and making your whole life a work of art. And I can't kind of give you enough details there to where you can kind of go, okay, I know what this guy's talking about, what this is. You can focus, your life art is your life art, but at least, here's an example here. And I can give you many more people's examples. And in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. That will make its way out into the world at some point. Excuse me. So that paper's up there. So grab that. You can just download those papers. There's also just I've put out like 4 or 5 white papers in the last 3 or 4 months or something, and so anybody that follows my work, that followed me and Melissa, our kind of content is being reiterated in these white papers, and they're not that long, and so I encourage you to download those. Now, I also been kind of gestating on some new projects, and what's the next thing gonna be? I mean, I'm doing these workshops now at the Casa de Luz Village in Austin, and so that's gonna keep going on, and I'll keep talking about that. But that's more local, and a lot of the people that come on this channel are not in Austin. So the other projects is that once I got done with the film about Melissa, which is still being shopped to film festivals. It'll be out into this year or January maybe of next year. But I'm like, okay, what's the next project? What's the next piece of life art that needs to be done? Because I don't get to choose. We don't get to choose what our projects are going to be. We basically we tune in to what's coming through us, and then we follow those promptings, and that's the only way that things work out, and that's the only way that we can feel fulfilled and have a meaningful life, a purposeful life, is when what we're doing is soul work, right? So I've been kind of just going over ideas and trying to figure out what is the next thing, what is supposed to come out next. And after Melissa passed, it became very obvious, very, very, immediately that the what I need to do immediately, the first thing to do was to make that movie about her, so that, because while she's still very fresh in my psyche, and while I was still grieving, I still am grieving, but while that was very fresh, that's the time that I should make that movie that explores her and her life and our time together and all of that. So I did that, and that's what I spent 2025 on. And then I was going to see how I would feel after that. And I realized that there's a lot more material that needs to come out. But how is that to be done? And I've been putting her music up on her Bandcamp page, which is melissamari.bandcamp.com. There's a little bit more to go up there. Actually, there's quite a bit more to go up there. Most of the studio recordings are up there, except for 2 projects. Her very, very first band called The Intentions, and then this other small project called Mind Scar. Those two still have to go up, but all the other studio albums that she did, I'm pretty sure I have them all. Those are up there, and I'm gonna make a best of Melissa Mari CD, and I'm gonna make an album, an LP, an actual vinyl album of our band, the O1 Experience. So that's happening, but the next thing that I'm doing is I'm writing this book about I don't know what it's finally going to be called, but it's currently my alchemical relationship with Melissa Mari. And so I'm going to go into I'm just going to talk about in a first person way, not a third, like I usually write third person scientific kind of objective kind of way of writing. But I'm going to approach this differently. This is all going to be from first person. This is what I witnessed. This is how she was. This is what we did. This is what happened to us. This is how things appeared. And just really kind of give the reader kind of an inside view as to what our relationship was about and why it was alchemical and what that means, at least from our experience. Because I was going to just call it the alchemical relationship and write about what that is. But I realized that's completely arrogant. I can't do that. This is just basically, the alchemical relationship is basically just the most serious version of what you would call a conscious relationship. And that's going to vary from one person to the next, from one couple to the next. And everybody's going to be engaged in a different type of inner work, even if we have the sort of alchemical motif as our base. Basically it's transmutation, where we go into the depths rather than like a mystic liberation type of approach where we try to leave the ego, leave the body, and all of that. Non-dual, whatever it is. This is a path of redemption and healing through descent. That's what the alchemical path is. So, and the Jungian way is sort of the most well-described recent version of that's described well that we have. And so pretty much probably everybody who's doing this will ultimately end up finding Jung and understanding at least something about the Jungian system and all of that, because that's kind of, it's carrying the archetype. And so that's kind of what joins all alchemical relationships together. But they're going to be different. Everybody's going to be in a different place and doing a different thing and have their own little cosmos of relationship. So the best thing for me to do is just explain and describe what happened to us and what we did and how we were thinking and how did we make meaning out of that situation. So that, and I had 2 books actually. I had The Alchemical Relationship, and then I had The Way of the Sacred Life Artist. I was thinking that was going to be 2 books because I had that paper on the Sacred Life Artist, and I'm thinking, okay, well then that's just the warm up to another book. I have all this on my whiteboard, but I was thinking to myself, these might be able to be joined somehow. And then once I realized that the book was going to be a first-person account, a storytelling of what we did, then I realized that I can just tuck all the Sacred Life Art stuff all in there and everything, and I could just put everything into this format. And so that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a single book, and I've already started it. And I was like, I have this whiteboard up, and I have these different, project ideas that I've been fleshing out on there. And then this morning I woke up and I went over to the board, and I was like, oh, let's see here. What with the two books, can they be joined? And then I said, because this is just how the artist works. You just operate off of intuition and off of creative ideas that just pop into your ego. And so it occurred to me to go to Amazon and put in the title, the Alchemical Relationship, to see who else had that book, if anyone had ever written anything with that title. And I had already actually done that a few months ago. But I did it again, and I didn't see anything, but I saw a book called The Alchemical Woman, written by these 2 PhD Jungians. And I went to go look and where could I get it, but it's out of print, and people are selling it for hundreds of dollars. Amazon was selling it for $1,000. It said like 1 left or something like that. But then I just put it into a search engine, and I just immediately found someone had uploaded the PDF for it. And so I just grabbed that. I just following intuition, and I grabbed it and I looked at that. And I'm going to look through, I've already skimmed it, but I'm going to look through that book more deeply. But what that book did was helped me to see why I didn't want to write from a third-person perspective. And because no one can describe the great work, objectively, properly. No one can do it. And everyone that tries to do it just stumbles. And so this was just another attempt to do that. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. It's got to be first person. So anyway, once I realized, wow, okay, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be first person. It's just going to be a story. It's just going to be one book, bum, bum, bum. Then I was like, boom. And then all of a sudden, my whole body just relaxed. My whole body was just like, it's like, oh, I finally, it's like, I made it, I realized that there was all this creative tension that I was holding that had been building, but I've been working on other projects and doing these papers and doing all kinds of stuff, did that workshop and everything, but this was like on my plate over the last week. I was like really trying to crunch, okay, what are the next projects? And then once I saw that, okay, then everything just relaxed, and I just felt my whole body just relax. And so that was, that's the sign right there that you're on it. And this brings me to the creative process, and this is what the artist has to do is that, and thanks to my dad, who didn't end up being an artist really. He started out as one, as an actor. Both my parents were actors, and he was studying directing and film and symbolism in film and things like that. So I got some in my formative years. I got some good stuff. He was a Zen Buddhist for a while, so I got some good spiritual stuff out of him. But he explained to me early on, I remember, I don't know how old I would have been, 10 years old, something like that, about what the creative process is and how it works. And how it's this continual, it's a birthing process. And so an idea shows up, and then you start to work on it, and it doesn't want to come out. And so then you have to sleep on it or put it away, and then it gestates, and then it comes back out again, and then you try to get it out the next time, and it doesn't really work out. And then, you have to sleep on it again, sometimes overnight, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. Depends on what it is and where you're at in life. And then it tries to come out and it goes back down. So it does this multiple times, and you have to hold the tension. You have to deal with the suffering, with the birthing pains while this thing is gestating. And you can't just depend on the art to just, it either pops out fully formed or not. No, you have to midwife it. You have to work with it. And so even if what you're doing gets thrown away, you're a writer, you type, throw that away, right? You type, okay, try it again next day. Oh man, where's this going? Until finally, just on its own, finally it clicks, and then you can see it, and then you can feel it, and you're like, oh wow, this is how it's supposed to go. And then you just, bang, you're just on it, and then you flow, and then you can't stop. Or you might stop, you might get to an impasse where there's the art has to go into a certain direction, and you don't know, and so you might start that again. But you have to tolerate the creative process, which can be ecstatic, and it can be very painful, and you have to be able to tolerate that. So because I've been a musician, for my whole life, and been very productive that way, and so I'm used to that. And thanks to my dad for turning me on to that insight, so that I always know that this is the process. You got to go to the wall, back up, to the wall, back up, to the wall, until you finally go over. So what happened with that situation I was telling you about is that I was just going to the wall with this thing, and until I finally went over, and then my whole system relaxed. So now I can just start typing. Now I just start writing. I wrote out an outline, just some kind of basic outline, and I'm getting started on this book. So I'm pretty sure I'll probably be done with this by the end of the year. Who knows? You never can say. But I saw how the movie went. Once I saw what to do with the movie and how it was going to go and stuff and everything, and first phase was just getting all the footage together. That took several months. And then once that was together, had to kind of learn this video editing program a little bit, and then it was just boom, and then I just flowed took me 5 months, I think, to complete it every day, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day. That's the way it is with me. So that's great. So I got that book, and then another thing that I'm going to do that's not going to take as much effort is this Mari TV, is what I'm calling it, Mari TV. I have so much footage of Melissa. I have so much footage of her. I have thousands of hours of audio recordings that I have, in order to turn those into video, I have to sync them up with some kind of background, and that's more complicated. But just on video, I got so much material. And the whole project that I used to make the movie, I've got all this unused material, used and unused. So I'm going to take all these clips of her improvs, of her live performances, of our conversations, and all kinds of good material that's just good, wise, amazing material, or her incredible shamanic performances. And I'm going to make clips out of all those, and our music videos, and just everything. And I'm going to make a playlist. I'm going to render all those files and make a playlist that will just continue to grow over time. And I did some research on this. I'm going to use an online streaming system that basically you get to, you upload your material there, and then it streams it in a playlist, like a radio station, like a TV station. It will stream it to YouTube. So what you'll see when I'm done with this, if I go this route, is you'll see on Shadowtech Alchemy, you'll see a constantly playing live stream. I'll still come in and you can get up to 10 live streams per channel. So I'll still have this Tuesday live stream, but then we'll have a constantly playing live stream, just a repeating live stream of Melissa, Mari TV. And so anyone can just tune into that at any time, any hour of the day, anywhere in the world. And you could just sit there and put it on like a TV show. And it'll just take you through different things about Melissa. And so you can learn about this woman, this important woman. And so that's another thing that I'm going to do. Because basically what I have to do right now at this time in my life, it's been 19 months now since she passed, and now I have to take all of her material and everything that we did together and put it into the culture. I have to create an heirloom, basically. I have to put it all together, tidy it all up, offer it out to people, and put it in the books, put it in the albums, put everything together so that her work survives my lifetime. Survives her lifetime and my lifetime. That's what the project is. And right now, while I have all this, free time, and while I'm living here at this house and life is chill, this is the time to do that. So that's kind of the update on everything that I'm doing and all of that. So now, where are we? It's time to talk about the modern alchemist. There's a book by Iona Miller. Iona and her husband, was it David? Miller, the Millers. And unfortunately, Iona is gone now too. Just an amazing, esoteric researcher, and that relationship that she had with her husband. What is his name? I think is it I have to remember his first name. That was an alchemical relationship. That was a very mystical relationship they had, and they were very prolific. And they wrote this book together called The Modern Alchemist. I have it back in California. But I'm just using the term generally. And so what I'm saying here, what this is, the modern alchemist is doing some kind of version of what Melissa and I were doing. The modern alchemist is someone who is, in whatever way, engaged in the great work of inner transformation. And I describe alchemy, I usually define it as the spiritual scientific art of transformation, or the spiritual scientific art of transmutation, which is more accurate. And so it's spiritual because it's connecting you to the transcendent, it's connecting you to the ancestral, to the archetypal, it's connecting you to the greater psyche, so to speak. It's scientific because it's, we're not just making stuff up. We're not New Agers who are just making stuff up or just, using our imagination to create a magical world for ourselves. It's one thing to create a piece of life art, like Melissa and I. We have the story of Will and Faith, and that's another thing that's gestating. And that's, so that could become a comic book, that can become a movie, it can become a book. But I don't go out in the world and say, I'm Will, and I come from planet Zarkon, and blah, 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 So this is scientific in that we're documenting our process. We're at least being aware of what other people who do this work are doing, so we have some greater understanding of what our peers are doing and what the people who came before us did, and we're trying to have some kind of apply some kind of scientific rigor to things. We're not just screwing around. And it's the spiritual scientific art, and it is an art. And the art part means that it's very much rooted in intuition, and it's very much rooted in the creative process, as I just described it a few minutes ago. And it's very much about connecting to the symbolic world, right? And it's very much about the inner outer relationship, which has to be interpreted subjectively. You can't interpret the inner outer symbolic world. Synchronicities and epiphanies and numinous experiences, you can't interpret that objectively. So you're going to interpret it subjectively, and you're going to put your own subjective lens over it. And this is your art lens. This is your movie lens. This is your movie. So it's very much an art. It's an art. Alchemy is an art. And so whether you might be engaged in something like this from an Eastern perspective. I mean, if you look at the Hermetic tradition, if you look at Carl Jung's work, we're talking mainly about a Western alchemy. But that's not important. If someone feels in their soul that they feel drawn to some kind of, Chinese inner alchemy, Naidan alchemy, and that's their thing, and they're using, a Chinese or a Vedic, a Tibetan practice, and they're doing this alchemical transmutation work in themselves and their relationships through that lens, fine, no problem. As Westerners, it's easier for most of us to connect with the Western system. But this is what we're doing, and so we're engaged in healing ourselves. Healing is the first thing, really. Working through our complexes, studying our inner domain, and working through our ancestral trauma, so to speak. And so it's therapeutic first, and then it's about processing and moving through in a conscious way our developmental trajectory. Children develop through stages of bodily and psychological consciousness genetically. They grow up, and their genetics just unfolds one stage after the next. You see how children are when they're in infancy, when they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10. You see these big changes in children, very rapid big changes in children. But once you hit adulthood, definitely once you hit age 25, the whole thing just kind of says, okay, done, we've unfolded. The brain is fully developed by 25, and there's still evolution that's going to happen socially, culturally. You have your soul path, but the default for human beings is to kind of plateau after that age. But what we're doing, what the alchemist is doing, is we're actually consciously healing and developing ourselves so that we can go to higher stages of psychosocial consciousness than the default. And the only way you can do that is if you put your mind to it and say, this is what I'm doing. And the only way you can do that is if you're called to it. There has to be something in you that's saying, evolve, evolve, evolve. I remember being in my early 20s, and I remember one time kind of like walking. I don't remember where I was walking. It was at night somewhere. And the word evolution kept on popping up into my head. And I'm like, I know what that means basically, but why is that showing up? What is that? And then from that moment, I kind of just it was just kind of like a hook. It was always there. It was there before, it was there after, and I always kind of remembered the word evolution. There's a lot of stuff that actually happened in my early 20s that pointed me here. Could talk about later, but that right there, I always knew this is the key. There's something to this, to this, to this. And I read that book by Julian James. I had read Carlos Castaneda and stuff like that, but I read that book by Julian James, The Origin of Human Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. And it's an interesting theory and all of that, but I was attracted to it was because it was about the origins and development of consciousness. And then this ended up being what I was all about, but just my own consciousness. So I've always had this inclination to evolve. I've always been introspective. I've always questioned my own inner state, even though I was not capable of overriding my own automatic patterns. At least I was looking at them, writing down on paper and notebooks or whatever, whatever came to me about myself. So I was always on this path. You have to have that inclination. That has to be there. And it may not be there when you're younger. It may just turn on suddenly. Like some people will have a family and they'll be just totally in that mode until they're 50 or something. And then suddenly something will click and they'll just start reading Jungian books or whatever it is, and they'll just go on this inner path. So it doesn't have to unfold in early life, but that has to be there. No one can make themselves, just because somebody said this is a cool thing to do or this is good for you, this will help you. No one's gonna do it unless their soul is saying evolve, 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 evolve. That has to be in there. So the modern alchemist, just like the ancient alchemist, that is running in them. They are, back to a New Age term, they're imaginal cells, right? The cells of the butterfly that start inside the chrysalis and then eventually grow populous enough to where they overtake the caterpillar and a whole new life form emerges. And so that's who we are. We're evolvers, people who evolve. We evolve our entire lives. We never plateau. We just don't plateau. And we learn, just like the artist does, because alchemists are artists, to tolerate the suffering of the gestation of our art. So that's going on too. We're doing that. So that's what we're doing. We're doing the same thing that evolvers from whatever tradition, from whatever secret society or mystery cult or whatever it was. We're just doing it today in the modern world. So I got some notes here, and I'm just, these were just like, what I wrote down to riff off of. Building a new eco-village or off-grid community with others who have no psychological knowledge or tools will get you nothing new. Right? We're starting to get to the point now in the West, especially in America, where people are realizing, okay, wait, the system, the matrix, so to speak, is so broken, is so parasitic, is so corrupt. You can't vote your way out of this. So we're going to have to take action ourselves. We're going to have to do this ourselves. And that's going to manifest in 1,001 ways. And people are going to try all kinds of things. But like I said there, you can build whatever you want to build. You can build a political action group, local politics thing. You can build your own eco-village, your own intentional community. You can build your own clubs. You can do whatever it is. Whatever you're going to do that's going to involve other people, what's going to happen is you're just going to run right into the same issues that are always there. And if you're working with people who don't have any psychological awareness or any tools, how are you going to navigate conflict? You're just going to do the same monkey stuff that everyone's already doing, right? So, okay, you can do some stuff, you can get busy, but if there's not an evolution of consciousness there, then what's going to really happen? Like when you go back to the founding of the United States, you see that there was a spiritual philosophy behind its founding that was very high consciousness for the time. And so that has to be there. There has to be a spiritual philosophy, some kind of psycho-spiritual philosophy and philosophy that's underlying what you're doing. And you know, the founders, they worked out a lot of socio-political ways of problem solving and structuring society in a way that would foster symbiosis rather than predation and parasitism. So they did a very good job. And because there was a wave of consciousness, just like in our time, the last moment that we saw a real wave of the consciousness of our people was in the 1960s. That's when you saw that the cultural revolution. And there was all kinds of pathology and shadow and all that too, but you saw a real opening there. Some of it thanks to psychedelics, but all kinds of things were all kind of collaborated at once, and we had the human potential movement, and we had all this consciousness stuff that came out. So that's what you had back in the 18th century, and you had all of this Hermeticism, and it was inside of the Masonic groups and all of that, and that made its way into the founding of America. So that has to be there. There has to be a sacred core to everything that's going to actually do something different. It's going to be novel. It's going to be evolutionary. Otherwise, it's just repeating the same thing that you've already done. No reason to do it if you're an evolver. So what I would say is that not everybody is going to be, people are going to be at varying levels of depth when it comes to the inner work, the work of consciousness. But you need, if you're going to form a community, you need a community that basically has a basic agreement of, okay, here's the principles of the whole thing, and here's our tools for conflict resolution, and here's how we work through impasses and use them to evolve rather than devolve and break up the community. You've got to have that kind of an operating system. You've got to have some antiviral software in your community. And, you know, some people will say, well, you make a religious community. And if you've got people who are at that stage of consciousness, that can actually work. But in our tradition in the West, with our Judeo-Christian options, right? There's a tendency to repress the shadow and then to project it outward. So even if you keep your community intact because everybody's symbiotic, they're projecting shadow out. And so they're having fights with other communities. And you see churches do this, and they split up, and then they fight each other and all of this. So really, that if you look at, like I always talk about Neumann's work, Depth Psychology and a New Ethic, and he explains that our Western tradition is one of repression and projection of the shadow. So I wouldn't get involved with any kind of community that didn't have shadow work, personal and relational shadow work at the core of the community values. So that's just the note there. Building a new eco-village or off-grid community with others who have no psychological knowledge or tools will get you nothing new. And so where are your psychological tools? Where's your psychological knowledge and tools? Are you competent enough? Let's not put it that way. Are you serious enough, let's say that, about the work to join a community like that? Because it doesn't mean competence. It doesn't mean how evolved you are. It just means how committed you are to the work. That's all. You have people at all kinds of levels of competence. It's just, do they have a commitment to it? Because if they do, then they can stay with it and everything can be worked through. It's all good. So it's not about competence, it's about commitment. I got a note here that I watched an interview with Daryl Cooper. He's a modern historian. And he was talking about living historically and how most Westerners are not living historically anymore. And what he means is that they don't have a grounding in where their ancestors were, what their ancestors did, what their ancestors passed to them, and what their duties and responsibilities are to pass that along to their children and to posterity. There's no sense of any kind of ancestral lineage and duty because we're totally multicultural now and materialistic. And so we're not living historically anymore. And so we're unrooted. And so people do various things these days to try to root back. They join a religious community, or they try to identify with some kind of identity group, and that is when you do it unconsciously, you get big problems with that, because then that just creates your own little cult, and then again you project your shadow out onto everybody else, and you just stay in conflict. So but in terms of the alchemists, the modern alchemists, we need to understand our history, right? Who are the alchemists? Where do they come from? Alchemy is synonymous with Hermeticism, right? And so this is the underground, esoteric, spiritual tradition of the West that operated around Christianity. It was part of the founding of Christianity, and then it was in its original forms, various forms, pushed out. Even though it influenced it, it was pushed out, and then it had to kind of go underground during the, say, 1500 years of the dominance of the Roman Catholic Church. But this tradition, this esoteric or hermetic tradition, which goes back to before all of that, Alexandria, Egypt, was a huge melting pot for spiritual cults. And right in the times of the birth of Christianity, and the several hundred years before, and so there was a lot of gestation going on there. But and it was coming in from Persia. It was even coming in from China and India, and it was the Greeks. This was the Hellenistic period, and the Greeks were running Egypt, and the Greeks have their whole philosophical background with Plato and Aristotle, and then you have Plotinus, who is the sort of the founder of Neoplatonism, and this is all very spiritual, mystical spirituality, and then you get the alchemists, and you have this whole underground tradition that it even goes way back further. It goes back to Egypt. It goes back to Mesopotamian culture and all of that. So this is our Western esoteric tradition, our Western perennial tradition, and we are perennialists, and we believe that there are foundational or archetypal spiritual roots, truths, or tenets that belong to all spiritual traditions, and that those are the foundations of all spirituality and all religion. And so we're looking for those. We're wanting to make our own personal spirituality rooted in those foundations, and be able to build what works for us. So, but those of us who, this tradition is so esoteric still, thanks to Carl Jung did really, really brought it out. Like I was saying before about the 18th century, and you had this whole, you had the Renaissance, and a lot of material that was lost was refound during the Renaissance, and that was still involved in the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment went more towards materialism, and science moved in that direction, but it brought the Hermetic underground tradition with it. And so it kind of bumps up and goes down and bumps up and goes down. And Jung brought a bunch of this out and retranslated it and framed it through the through psychology, and sort of gave us this tradition and this work again, to put us back in touch with the great work. And so now we have that, but still so few people are really working with it. And there was a wave of Jungians from, during his lifetime and for a few decades after his lifetime. But that's, we're starting to see a little peak of it again, but it's just little memes on social media, and no one's really going into depth hardly. So the modern alchemist is actually in touch with this. And the modern alchemist is looking at this, and it's a lifelong study. And it's not important, how much you know or whatever now. It's just, you just constantly just keep looking at this. Keep trying out these ideas on yourself and putting it into your laboratory, so to speak. So we have that. And so the modern alchemist is basically a Jungian. And even if you're not a Jungian, and even if you're more on the Eastern path, you're going to know about that, and you're going to be touching that and utilizing that to whatever degree. So so what I was saying there is Daryl Cooper was talking about how we're not living historically anymore. And what I'm saying right there is that by touching Jung, we touch the esoteric tradition, and we touch, all the way back thousands of years, all the way back into pagan shamanism it goes. So we have a whole lineage, back into the Eleusinian mysteries and all of that. We have a lineage. And so when we get in touch with that material, when we put that on and start working with that, we root back, which is really what religion actually means. Religio means to tie back, right? And we could talk about the difference between spirituality and religion and all of that, but right now, so back to my notes, your own complexes will not heal on their own. They will metastasize. Whatever is pathological will grow unless you work it through. Your destiny will not manifest until you touch it, know it, and feed it. Right? So your fate is the complexes that you never can fully work out. Your destiny is what you're here to do. And if you touch it, work with it, feel it, nurture it, feed it, then it will grow and it will manifest despite your fate. It will grow around your fate. It will grow through and around your fate. You will still suffer a fate. There will still be an entropic side, a viral side of life. But your destiny side will manifest regardless. Like, for example, with Melissa. Melissa had all kinds of fate. And you could even, say in some, if you look at it through the wrong lens, you might think it's tragic. But no, because she touched her destiny. She touched it, she worked with it, she nurtured it. She really, really worked with it and nurtured it, and it really manifested. And it really popped out. And then, in the last 12 years of life, she did it in front of me, a documentarian, someone who could watch and go, wow, that can't be forgotten. That's part of her destiny too. So even though she wasn't able to be famous as a performance artist, outside of the local scenes that she played in, she's got me to carry it on even after she's gone. That's part of her destiny. So you've and this is the other thing, is that the complexes are so addictive. The destructive patterns are so addictive, and they will grow. And you just anybody can look at their own parents, look at people they know intimately, closely, when they get older, and see how their pathology just sets in and the groove gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then, when they're 70, 80 years old, there's no getting out of that groove. That's going to be there. So it's only the person who says, I can't have that. Because if I have that to that degree, I can't manifest my destiny. That's getting in the way of my destiny. And my destiny is too important to let that complex, to let that pattern integrate to that level. So I'm going to have to work that through. It's going to be very uncomfortable, but I'm doing it because that's what needs to be done. Because otherwise, I don't, my soul code doesn't manifest. And I'm not going to have that. And sometimes you know what your soul code is. Sometimes you know where you're at with that. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're in between. But one thing is for sure, as long as you're cleaning up from the inside out, as long as you're doing the shadow work, you're doing the inner work, then you're cleaning that stuff out, and you are reducing the pull and transmuting those complexes. So the other thing I want to say about that is that in regards to destiny, your vocation, your daimon, however you want to put it, that is when you're going to go through cycles with that, and sometimes you're just on it. You're like, oh, I know this is what really turns me on right now. So that's when you're touching it. And when you start to get a little bit grandiose, that's when you know you're definitely touching it, and you have to watch that. But then sometimes you're, like the archetypal cycle, Edinger's, what's it called? The ego self axis. And so you fall down into the gutter, you fall down into a dark night of the soul, and that's when you have no touch with your destiny. But you clean it up, you do the shadow work down there, and then it reveals itself. And then you slowly see that gold, you see that grail, and you're like, there it is. When I do that, I feel better. When I do that, I feel I have meaning. And so then you go for that and just stay on that. So you have to recognize that there's going to be cycles where you're going to lose sight of your destiny. But as long as you know that whatever gives you joy, whatever gives you excitement, whatever gives you a sense of deep meaning that this is important, I must do this. And then as you get older, then you've had more and more of those experiences, and then it all kind of clicks together, and you can kind of see the bigger picture of it. You never see the bigger picture, but you can start to see more of the puzzle pieces coming together. You see more of the picture on the puzzle box. So the human being doesn't evolve by default. This is a new note here. The human being doesn't evolve by default, only by outside intervention or an inner drive to evolve. That's what I was saying. This is the Alchemist. Oh, maybe I did read this. This drive has to be there. That's why this is rare, but the more who commit, the easier it is for others. See, if I didn't commit to this, if Melissa hadn't committed to this, then I wouldn't be able to talk like this. I wouldn't be able to write any books or talk like this or do anything like this and have any kind of sense of gravity. The only reason why I can even talk publicly at all is because I've been doing this. This is what I've been doing. So, and then if you hear me talk and you recognize, okay, this is another person who's fully committed to the alchemy, fully committed to the personal grail, to the great work, and then if I can do it, then you can do it, right? And so the more of us that do this, it makes it easier for everybody else. I don't know if the 100th monkey thing, is fully true or not, but that's the idea. What is your sacred life art? That's the guiding light of life. It can change, or it can change, period. And we just discussed this, basically. It can be children. It can be a relationship. It can be a business. It can be an art project. It can be anything. But live it as a spiritual work of art, as sacred life art, right? So whatever it is that you're looking at and you're saying, this is important, this has meaning, this I must do, then that's what you turn into your religion. That becomes your personal religion, right? Nurturing that thing becomes your personal religion. It can be children. Most people don't approach family and children this way, but they should. There's just not enough alchemists, and so we don't have very many people raising children this way. But there can be nothing more beautiful, more amazing, more important than raising a child consciously as a work of sacred life art. What can be better than that? So although artists a lot of times kind of, sit on the edge of society and a lot of times don't have children. I don't have children. Melissa didn't have children. A lot of the ones that do, a lot of times they do their sacred life art and they let their children, this is pretty common. Men, I'm in the musician world, so, men are out there touring and doing their sacred life art, and then they're letting their children just stay at home with mom, and they're not spending enough time with their kids. And so, that is definitely, they're just not conscious. They're not conscious of what's going on, because they could actually do both. They could do both if they were conscious of it. But, okay, the next note. The meaning crisis. I don't have a meaning crisis, and healthy artists and alchemists never do. You hear people talking about the meaning crisis, the intellectual dark web guys, the Jordan Peterson, and all those kind of people talking about the meaning crisis. Remember that was big on the internet, on YouTube and stuff several years ago? People have lost meaning. Their jobs are meaningless. Their lives are meaningless. They're living in the matrix, and they're just doing the 9-to-5 job and all that. Of course that's meaningless. Can't do that. That's off the table. You can't be an alchemist or a sacred life artist and be doing the grind, the rat race. That's off the table, right? It's better to live in a tent than to do that. That's got to be off the table. So, you might still have to drive in traffic maybe, sometimes. You might still have to interface with the matrix society or whatever to do what you're interested in doing. But that's going to be worth the sacrifice, because what you're doing feels very, very important to you. It's what you're here to do. So the sacred life artist, the alchemist, or, we can extend this out to just anyone, because life artistry actually isn't always known to be a spiritual thing for people. We will know it to be a spiritual thing because that's our orientation. But there's a lot of people who are making very amazing life art, as Melissa would call it, that are doing it without real knowledge that what they're doing is sacred. But they don't have a meaning crisis either, right? They don't have a meaning crisis. So if you're getting in touch with your ecstasy, with your passion, with your talent, and you're pushing through your fate, pushing up against your fate, pushing up against your complexes, pushing up against your internal entropy, right? And you're doing that hero's journey, then you got tons of meaning in life. A life that is riddled with suffering, but which has that gold is seeable, that light is there, and you're following that light, even with the suffering, is a life of tremendous meaning and purpose. You're not out of place. You can tolerate tremendous suffering when you're on the target. And the target can change. Once you look back after a while, you'll see, oh, those were all the prerequisites. Those were all the breadcrumbs they needed to go together. But it doesn't matter. As long as you're on it, then no meaning crisis will befall you. Let's see what I've been talking for a while, so let me take a little break here and see. There's a couple comments from you guys. Is there a link to give? Oh yeah. We talked about that. And Theo, what's up, Theo? I would love to have children, but finding a partner has been challenging. Yeah, Theo, you can't make it happen. It doesn't work that way. Not when you're on this path. You have to you got to just do what I did, and that while you're partnerless, you just do this work as much as you can and just commit to the work. Raise your consciousness, work through your complexes, do the shadow work, all that kind of stuff, because that's how you can evolve without a partner. Once you have the right partner, then you've got the potential for some really good evolution, but a different kind of, it's the same evolution, but it's just a different framework for doing it. But but when that person's not there, you've got to just do it on yourself and just take it very seriously. And that's what I did. And that worked for me. And Melissa showed up out of the ether. She showed up through the music world. There was the chances of finding, Melissa was made, it's like, Eve is made from Adam's rib or whatever in the Bible. Is that what it is? Yeah. It should be the reverse probably, but it's like me and Melissa were made from each other's psyches. So, it was like total soul contract stuff. And that just showed up because I was committed. I was committed, and I was suffering, and I was trying different relationships, and none of them was working out. And I was just like, where is my person? And then after about 8 years of that, after really starting the work deeply, boom, she shows up. So it will happen. But at the same time, you do have to, you got to try things. You got to move the field. You got to test the field. You can't just sit in your room and expect someone to just knock on the window and be like, "Are you Theo? I heard about you." That's where I've been at for quite a while now. Yeah, no, I know. It sucks, man. And I know what it feels like. It really sucks. And it sucks to not have your person, to not have your alchemical partner. But you can start testing the field. You can start putting out the your feelers on that. And one of the things I was going to talk about today, this will touch into what we're saying right here with partners, is that the internet thing is one of the things on my list. In fact, is it my next thing? No, but it's the one after that. So this internet thing is great because YouTube and we're talking to each other from across the world. And what we do is rare. So we have to have this. This is important. This is a good technology. We would have it without this. We would have secret societies, and we would be writing letters to each other and stuff like that. We would still be doing it. But this is good. And especially YouTube, the normal social media, you know what? It depends. For me, I can't really get Instagram. It's mainly pictures and stuff. It's not much conversation. I have no real use for it. I don't even use it. I'm not even going to try TikTok. But Facebook, to me, I can actually talk to people, and I can meet people that way, and people can join me and stuff and find out about my show or my books or whatever. But still, I use it to keep track of the people that Melissa and I both knew, or I have a separate one for my band, for my music stuff, and that's pretty useful for when I'm on tour or whatever, to, you know, put the word out, or if I need a musician or something. It's a useful device for sure. It's like a phone book. To the degree it's like a phone book, which reminds me, I had this idea about creating a new phone book. A spiritual, psycho-spiritual phone book. I mean, let me write that down so I don't forget that. The psycho-spiritual phone book. I got to pull that idea back out. I haven't thought about that in a few months. That was something that kind of fell into the weeds. But people are on social media. I see people posting, 20 times a day. I see people spending, you can see on Facebook if someone's online. And I see that thing, they're just on there all day long and stuff. That is a complete waste of your life. And spending your time with, it's one thing if you're an artist or whatever and you're saying, hey everybody, here's my stuff. You're putting it out there so they, or the handful of people you really know or connect with, to support them in some way or whatever. It's one thing, check into it. I check in with it. But to be spending substantial amounts of time on social media is a complete waste of your life. Throwing your life in the trash is what it is. Because all that time just talking to strangers and people that you're never going to meet, or that some peripherally or whatever. Again, I'm not saying it's not useful, but it's like, what if you just spent all your time standing in the town square, sitting on the bench in the town square, and you just waved at people? What if you just sat at a cafe? This is like Europe. Cafe life. What if you just sat in cafes, or in one cafe in the town square, and you just waved at people and said hi to people and stuff as they passed by, and that was your social life, and that's what you did? That would be better than social media? Definitely. But it would be a huge waste of your life, because I guess if you were reading books, I guess if you're sitting there outside and you're saying hi to your friends and stuff, and then you're sitting there reading books or studying, okay, that would work. But with the current way that we're doing it, we're online, and that's taking up our consciousness, and so we can't be reading at the same time. We can't be creating anything. We can't be artists. We can't be writing. We can't be working on our art projects. We can't be studying or making art. We can't be involved in real relationships. We can't be going for a walk with somebody that's similar to us, that we can learn from and share with. We can't be doing all kinds of human things that we have to do because we're on the stupid social media. So that thing is just toxic garbage. It's like a phone book. A phone book is useful. But what if you just spent all your time just scrolling through the phone book? You'd be a crazy person. So the social media thing is completely incompatible with this kind of lifestyle, with this highly conscious, therapeutic, alchemical, artistic lifestyle. This has got to be limited down to something that's, whatever, use it for what it's good for, but just... Now, YouTube is a little different. YouTube is not really so much a social media platform. It's a place to learn, but it's also becomes basically like having the TV on all the time. So at least with that, you can have the TV on, you can have your YouTube channel on, you can be learning something, and you can be making breakfast or lunch or whatever. You can be doing two things at once and learning some stuff or whatever. So that at least, YouTube is the best of all of them. It's a lot more functional. If we didn't have any of the other social media, but we had YouTube, we'd be fine. So Oh, Theo says he hasn't been on social media except YouTube since his teens. Yeah, see, there you go. He's smart. But I wanted to say that. I say that every once in a while because some people spend way too much time on social media, and so I gotta, kind of come in from time to time, and say something about that. Simplification of life down to the basics. How I live and have lived. So, this is also part of the lifestyle. We're on the subject of the modern alchemist still. So, even if you have funds, even if you have wealth, a lot of artists don't. But even if you did, there's no reason to be all caught up in all kinds of contracts and all kinds of distractions and buying things and being, all the new shiny thing and all this kind of stuff. That's a distraction. And so the way to go is do whatever you're going to do, but make it simple. Make it simple and not to where your life is out of your control and distracting you and damaging you. Curate your life. Create the environment that works for you to evolve yourself, right? Curate your life, your environment that works for you to evolve yourself. And that might mean certain sacrifices. Like I've told you guys many times before, that there was a period where I didn't even want to own a car. I was in California, and I wasn't even in San Francisco where you could just use buses and all that. I was out in the East Bay in the suburbs, and I just had a 12-speed, it was like a racing bike or something. I put a rack on the back and put a box on there so I could take my groceries home and everything. This is when I was single, and I didn't even have a car for 4 years. I just rode a bicycle. I just simplified everything. My place of business and my place where I lived and did my business was all in one location. So I didn't even really have to go that far, and I just simplified everything down. And all my friends were, buying houses and making car payments and going on vacations. I still went on vacations. But in my case, I used my band. I toured with my band. And then I would stay in Europe or wherever for longer after the tour was over and meet people and hang out and have a vacation. So I did it creatively. And so I creatively curated my life. And it wasn't always easy at all. But it was a lot better than working for somebody else and just doing the rat race, doing the grind and all of that. Theo says, it's all narcissism shit show. At least on YouTube, people are being creative and entertaining. Also, the educational content has been incredible for self-growth. Yes, this is true. There's a lot of slop on there, though, like AI slop, they call it now. There's a lot of AI and influencer slop, but there's a lot of good educational material. You create your own subscriptions, and you could subscribe to that which you find edifying, that which you find healthy, and YouTube is a great resource. Absolutely, I agree, and it's also a way to meet people and stuff. These kinds of things. So simplification of life down to the basics. No debt, no credit cards, no loans and all that kind of stuff. Or if you have it, make sure that you can handle it easily. I started writing like I tend to do, third person, or I had to shift everything over to first person. Like, this is my experience. I protect my psychic field. I cannot be inundated by too much population or culture. I need space, air, quiet, nature, The busy city is not for me. I live on its edges or out of it completely. So I could have just framed that as, you should do this, but that's what the artist has to do. That's what the alchemist has to do, is curate your environment. I went to the gym today, and I went in the middle of the day. It was like, I don't know, it was like 1:32 in the afternoon. And usually that area is pretty loaded with people. But it was all quiet. You know how it is. It's like there was a wave, and it was quiet. And there wasn't as much traffic and everything. And it was just like, wow, this is what it would have been like 5 or 10 years ago. Because I'm just south of Austin, and it's just exploded. But this is what it would have been like 10 years ago when there was half the population. And it was like I was telling you earlier, my whole body just was like, relax. So I've known this my whole life, because my earliest days were spent in New York City. And when you're on this path and you're developing your psyche, and you're working through intuition, and your sensitivity is much higher than the average person, you can't just be getting slammed with noise and busyness and people all over the place. I know it's very populated. I don't know actually where you are exactly, Theo, but that area in general is very populated. And so I don't know how that's working out there, but I kind of have to find a place that's not overly populated and where you have access to nature. I mean, obviously you have access to that there. Okay, I still got some more stuff on here. You guys keep talking to me though. If you have questions or comments that relate to this or to anything else, just pop them in there, and I'll put what I'm saying down, and we'll just kind of go back and forth. Oh, you're on a mountain. See, there you go. He's on a mountain. That's excellent. That's how you got to do it. Exactly. So, doing it the right way. So, community, find your local people. This goes back to you too, Theo, and anybody else. All right. Community, find your local people. Do it. Start or join a club or something that attracts them. Put up posters. Do something. Because there are other alchemists in our country, in our state, in our locality. They're in their own little world and stuff, but they have enough of they're close enough to where you can talk to them and you can learn from them, and they can learn from you. And maybe they don't know they're alchemists. Maybe you can turn them on to the idea and educate them about what this is and the whole framework and everything. But it's like, for example, I found this Casa de Luz village, and it is probably the epicenter of, there's New Agey kind of people, but New Agey people are not alchemists. They're kind of like a science fiction version of Christians. And alchemists are doing, they're transmuters of consciousness, transmuters of the shadow. And we're serious people involved in our own personal evolution. And we're not just talking about, ascension or whatever. And then bypassing all our shadow stuff and then projecting it out onto others, or letting it leak into passive aggression or leak into our bodies and become disease and all that. So it's a different path. It's, but when I go to that place, a lot of the people that are there are younger than me. They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And I'm in my 50s. So they're younger than me, but there's a lot of people that I'm meeting over there that are on some kind of psycho-spiritual therapeutic path. And, they can't tell me all the details about Jungian psychology or internal family systems or anything like that. But if I mention those things, they've heard of it, or they have some kind of experience with it, or they've done some kind of therapeutic practice that's similar to that, and they can resonate with it, and they go, they're somewhere around there. They may not even call it alchemy or whatever. And people who are in their 20s and 30s are developing their persona, they're developing their social world, their career, or whatever their vocation is. They're finding themselves, or they're figuring out if they're going to have a family or not. So they have, a particular set of things on their plate, goals, and but they can understand what I'm talking about. So I can go over there and I can have camaraderie, I can have peerage, I can have, and some of the older guys that are over there, like the owner and this other guy, I just recently met Steve, that's been over there for decades. Very high level people. So I can always talk to them. And nobody has my experience. Nobody really, there's very few people that, they can understand what I do and what Melissa and I did and everything. Some people can. But it's still pretty unique what we did. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. It's just under the umbrella of alchemy, but for where we are in our culture. But they can get me. They can get me, and I can get them. And it's very good for me to go over there. And even if they're only 80% able to get me, or 70% able to get me, that's better than the average person who's like, 20% able to get me. So it's been very good. It's been very healthy. And I have some new friends, and I got something to do once or twice a week to go over there. And I've helped a lot of people already. I've learned a lot already. And I've only been going over there for a few months. So every part of the world has some kind of community, some kind of place, some kind of coffee shop, some kind of bookstore, some kind of meetup group. Something somewhere where people who are on a similar wavelength, even if it's not exactly the same, they can understand you in general and respect you and learn from you, and you can learn from them. That exists everywhere you are in the world. So you've got to find that. You've got to find that place, wherever that is. And once you find it, you're going to be like, oh, this is the place. It'll be like, or you'll find it'll be a guy that owns like a gyro shop or something like that, or a pizza place or whatever. And he's on the wavelength. Or he's whatever he or she is doing, a yoga studio. They're on the wavelength. And then you can talk to them and you can say, let's start having meetup groups here. Oh yeah, we should do that. Okay, boom, do that. So you just find one other person, and then they will either guide you to where this group is, or they will help you make one yourself. Sometimes you can get lucky like me. It wasn't luck, it's just destiny. But, or you're gonna have to put it together yourself. And if you gotta put it together yourself, that's part of your destiny. That's the work that you need to do. If you go looking and you can't find your community, and you can't find even a few people, and you live in a state, a country where there's millions of people there, and you can't find anybody that's like you, you're not looking, or it's just not where you're supposed to be right now. So, but I actually had to go look for that Casa de Luz place. I didn't find that just by not looking. I started going online and I started typing in. I started talking to Grok, I think it was, the AI engine. And I was like, look around in Austin, Texas, and see what you can find for Jungian groups, for people who are into. I said ayahuasca and psychedelics because that is an adjacent community, and I said I gave like a certain kinds of criteria, and I think that's how I found Casa de Luz. And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, I've already been to. I already knew about Casa de Luz because Melissa had been over there to go to a family constellations workshop or session over there. But she was working on healing herself and, you know, the cancer thing and all that. And so she wasn't in the mindset to really pick up what that place was all about. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that place. I've seen that place online a couple times, and I realized, oh, that's the place Melissa went. And I realized there was a connection there. And I went over there. And I'm like, oh, whoa, what is this? And so your community is out there. It's small, but it's out there. And now you got to find it, or you got to pull it together. You got to become a community leader yourself, or you got to find it. So, and that has to be done. We cannot just have YouTube or Facebook community for the rest of our lives. No way. No way. Cannot. So it's either find the community or make it yourself. That's your two choices. And so Dio says that he might go solo traveling eventually and put myself out there to meet people. Yeah, you're going to have to do it, man. You're going to have to do it. It's good, though, to find a local thing, though. It really is. It feels really good to have a local thing. Like when I was doing music, my other life was all about doing music. And I had a social life. I didn't not have a social life until I got with Melissa. And that was like 12 years of, we had some kind of social life, but it was mainly around like going to shows that it was a very insulated life. And we didn't need anything more. We didn't need anyone else. We could entertain ourselves. We were very creative together. And so we didn't need much social life. But I always had music world. I had touring, I had going to shows, I had playing, and, you know, I had working with other musicians in the studio and band practice, you know, always had band practice, you know, so I always had social life. And then now that Melissa's not with us, so now it's like, okay, I got to go find social life. And I'm not really doing the music. I mean, I still do music. It's still my profession and stuff, but hanging out at the bar or at the club is not really my thing, you know, with the loud music going. It's not really where I'm at. I'm into this. So it's like, gotta have it. Okay. Oh yeah, I got on the list. It says, I wrote relationships. What are you so afraid of? Because when I'm going down to this place and I'm meeting all these people, especially younger people, and they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and I'm finding most of them don't even have, they're single. All these single people. That's not true, not all of them, because there's people that hang there and there's people that come through there. There's this microbiotic, macrobiotic diet vegan restaurant. That's what Casa de Luz is. It's a vegan restaurant. And so you got people that go in and out of the restaurant, and you got this yoga studio there, flow yoga, and people are coming out of there. And you got this cacao lounge, and people are going in and out of there. And then you got the thought house where people hang out. And then you got just the whole kind of area around there. People are sitting down and talking and meeting each other and hanging out. So different people are doing different things. So there are couples, there are families, definitely, especially in the restaurant, going in and out of there. But a lot of people that I meet and end up talking to that go down there are single. And I'm like, and they're not even as esoteric and refined on this path as I am. They're somewhere on the path, but they're not like as, you know, totally dedicated to it as I am. They got other stuff going on in life. And so it's easier for them to find a partner than me. And they're single. And I'm like, what are they doing? They're just meeting each other, hanging out with each other, men, women, And they're just, why aren't they dating each other? Why aren't they going out? This is what people did when I was that age. And so it's this stupid digital thing again. We've been desocialized. And we're, the Americans mainly, I think, it's better in Europe. Again, it's better in Europe. It really is. There's a lot more, there's still a lot, people are still doing the old thing normally over there, much more than they are in America. This is more of an American problem. And I'm like, what are you so afraid of? Why don't you just date him? Why don't you go out with him? What's the problem? You know, why don't you have an experience? Why don't you learn something from the relationship? Go into the relationship, challenge yourself, have a great time, and learn. And then when you run into problems, work them through. Don't just be single. I mean, there's times that you need to be single, definitely. There are times that you need to do that. But people that are going to social places and are feeling very social, that's because that's where they're at. It's social time. So why aren't they in relationships with each other? So this is a huge problem. And they're just stifling their own growth. So anyway, I do understand how when you're like you're so refined and on the esoteric path that, you know, you really have to have somebody that can hang with you. I do understand that. But you can still, you know, you can help another person. You can be with another person and really help them and take them a peg higher. So, okay. I do not look for conflict, but I use it to understand my shadow, my projection, and the relational complexes that live within me. Right. So people are afraid of the conflicts that they're going to get into in relationships. But when you use conflict to evolve, to study yourself, when you have some tools, when you have IFS, internal family systems, when you have the Jungian system, when you have some kind of psychological tools, then you just apply those to your conflict and you learn about yourself and you evolve through the conflict. So people don't have tools, so they're afraid. And it's just like, man. Theo says social media has made people hella antisocial in reality. Yeah, so it's not just America. It is doing it everywhere. So this is why it's really important that we start dumping social media. We can keep going on YouTube or whatever is actually, you know, on the healthier side of it, and then start telling other people why we're dumping it. And then when you interface with people in public, okay, check this out. I'm very conscious. When I talk to people in public, I don't make them wait to find out that I can see. That I can see. I don't make them wait to find out. They know immediately. Somebody talks to me for 15 minutes, they're going to see immediately that I can see. I'm going to take them to something that's deep, something that's important. I ask a lot of questions. I let them talk. I do a lot of talking here, but when I'm in society and I'm talking to people, I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to where their genius is, where their spark is, and then I'm going into it and following it down. I'm saying, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. And I'm tracing it down, and I'm letting them take me on a little journey into their own life. And then I'm saying, how did that work out for you? How do you feel about that now? And I'm engaging with them deeply. I'm going into their world and engaging with them deeply. And they either feel uncomfortable with that, or they get fed by it. And then if they get fed by it, then then there's more conversations to be had with that person. Then you can exchange numbers or whatever it is, or see them again at that place, whatever it is. And then that can turn into a relationship. And then you can, and then you can tell people, oh yeah, this is the way I live, this is the way I do things, blah, blah, blah. So you just get deep with people immediately. You do it in a way that inspires or that honors their movie of life. You put on their glasses and see through their lenses, and you go, oh wow, I can see your movie. It's pretty cool. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. What does this mean? What does this mean? So you get depth with people, and then you explain to them once they've realized, oh, this person's deep, this person's real. Okay, this is how I live, this is what I do, and that's how you can influence people. You can influence people, you can give them something deeper and healthier and show them the example of someone who is living a deeper, more meaningful life, and invite them into that. Theo says that I have a certain energy and that people resonate. I have a certain kind of, I think what it is I have a certain kind of, I wasn't always like this. When I was younger, I wasn't a popular kid in school. I was on the outside, I was shy, and kind of hidden away. And then I was still like that through my early 20s, but then when I got into bands and I started playing, I started to interface with other men and then get on stages and stuff like that. Playing in bands with men, getting into a lot of arguments with guys and having to stick up for your vision and all the band drama and all of that. That's what kind of got me to where I developed a tolerance for conflict and a tolerance for being in people's faces and being, deep with people and all of that. So, and then I just have a certain kind of confidence now that I can just kind of go up to somebody and I can just, boom, go right into them. And like I'm saying, the trick is I do, people can get me into conversations where I'll just do this. I'll just dump stuff on them. And if they're ready for a dose, they'll let you know. They'll be passive. And they'll be like wanting a dose. So you got to figure out, where are they at? Are they wanting to give information, wanting to give some of what they are, or are they wanting to receive you? And so I always test to see where they're at, and by inviting them to share with me first. And that develops intimacy, trust, interest, and I'm genuine about it. I'm not doing it as a trick. If I didn't want to know about them, why do I want to talk to somebody and hang out with somebody that I don't want to know? Some people want to do this. They're just, like you were saying, narcissists. They want to just talk and just have somebody listen, but they don't care to actually know that person. That's not going to do that. If I want to talk to somebody, if I want to have a, back and forth with somebody, I realize it's going to be a two-way street. Now I want to learn something about them. So I'll just start with them. Just start with them, let them talk, let them unfold, and then just go into whatever it is and see what happens. See what happens. And use your intuition to guess which people are going to be, use your probing and your questioning to figure out who's going to be able to handle stuff. And what I usually do on this with this is that, because most Americans aren't that deep. Well, when I go to Europe and I talk to the Dutch people, okay, the Dutch are very deep. For the regular people are deeper than the regular people in most other places. And so I can kind of be deep with strangers there, and it'll work out well. But in America, I'll do that, and then the other person, I'll be watching them, and they'll be realizing that something rare is happening, and then I'll just kind of pull something out of them. Like they'll be telling me, I just will follow their train of conversation, and then I'll find something that's intriguing, and I'll pull it on that, and then I'll ask them to go further and further and deeper until they either stop or till something happens or whatever. And it's just, I just developed a practice doing it. And anyone who has an intuitive sense, anyone who isn't a total narcissist can do this. Anyone with some psychological knowledge and ability to listen and put on someone else's glasses and see through their eyes, anyone can do this. You just have to want to do this. You just have to say, I want to have deep conversations. And then you can just kind of practice on everybody. And then some people will come back around and some people won't. Definitely be in the flow of the moment, no agenda, but I do have an agenda, actually. My agenda is to open up the relationship. My agenda, it's back and forth and it's flow, but it's like saying, okay, the musician analogy. So you have another musician with you and they say, let's jam. You want to jam with another musician. Whatever they are, singer, drummer, guitar player, whatever they are. And so you go with the flow, no agenda. That's true. But the idea is to come up with something cool, come up with something new through the jam, to be able to improvise with that other person until something novel is created. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it. You're looking for a rush. You're looking for ecstasy. You're looking for some novelty. And so that's why you're doing the jam. So yeah, you're going with the flow and you're waiting to see what happens and you're just letting go and all of that kind of stuff. But you're in it for a reason. And both people are in it for a reason. Now, with this kind of thing I'm talking about now, with doing with strangers, is that you may get to know them after a while. But with this, the agenda is to basically get them into a jam, get them improvising and get them into a jam. Not a log jam, but like a musical jam. And so what will end up happening is they'll end up on a roll. And then you'll be mirroring them and showing them themselves, and then you'll be taking them down rabbit holes and that kind of stuff. And when that conversation is over, that person will be inspired, and that person will be energized, and they will have had a good jam. But they didn't know that you were going to jam with them, because most people don't jam around here. Other places they do. It depends on the culture. It depends on the era, the place, the time, and all that kind of stuff. But you can do that, Theo. Anyone can do that that's on this path. And that will be, and this is one thing that you I want to tell you guys, I want you guys to all take this, let me find the link for you. I'm going to see if I can, I don't know if I can put it in the chat. I'm going to try to put this link to to a Jungian personality test. Let's see this one here. Let's see if it'll work in the chat, or I'll just tell you what it is. It's the humanmetrics.com personality test. Humanmetrics.com. Let me try to come back over here and put it into the chat. It wasn't letting me before. Let's see if it's going to work. No, it doesn't let me. Oh, there it is. It worked. I had to use another method. I see. I had to use the mouse. That's what it was. Yeah, I just posted in there. It's the the Myers-Briggs Jungian personality test. take that test, be as honest and accurate as you can with it, everybody that's hearing this. And know that these personality types can change over your life. I'm generally an what am I? I am an INTJ. Right? I'm an INTJ, introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging. But I'm converting over to an INFJ, introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging, as I've gotten older. But when you take the test, it will show you what percentage you are introverted versus extroverted. So, I'm like 55% introverted, 45% extroverted on that test. You know, it's not perfectly accurate or anything, but it's kind of felt about right to me. So I'm a little more introverted than I am extroverted, and I have to push myself to be extroverted, but it usually works out. I just can't do it too often, but it usually works out. Now, some people are more like 80% introverted, and they have a harder time being public and doing stuff. Figure out where you are with that test. Because if you're anything like, 60-40 or whatever, you can easily push yourself into extroverted mode. What's my opinion of the Enneagrams? I like them. I like the Enneagram, Zachary. I like the Enneagram, and I think I'm kind of what am I on that? I think this thing has the Enneagram, I think, on it. Where is that? Let me see if this thing has it. Under more, if you go to the humanmetrics.com, I thought they had you click on personality. No, somehow related to this page, there's an Enneagram one too. But anyway, am I a number 4? Let me look it up for you guys. I'll tell you which one I think I am. Let's look at it in Wikipedia. Okay, so which 4 is the individualist romantic. There's different interpretations of it, and it's got wings of 2 and 1. And the 1 wing is the reformer perfectionist. I have that. And then the 2 wing is the helper giver. I have that. So yes, I think I'm a 4. And I've used the Enneagram on and off. Let me put that all away. I've used the Enneagram on and off for years. I'll pick it back up. I don't study it or anything, but I've looked at it and tried it again and stuff, and it feels like it kind of works out, like it's kind of accurate. So kind of works. I never was too big on astrology, even though when a good astrologer gives me a reading, I usually agree. But I have kind of been a little bit cautious with it. Oh, let's see here. Oh, you're a 5. I've thought it's very detailed. Well, it is definitely detailed. Let me go back to it again so I can see what the 5 was. Enneagram. Let's see here. Here we go. Back to that again. 5 is called on this one the investigator observer. Right. So yeah, so the observer is right. So the observer, even though I seem like I have that too, I look at this and I'm like, okay, I have some of all of these. So that's where the whole thing falls apart, is when you look at all of these and you realize these are archetypes. and they're part of humanity. And everybody has some of these ingredients in themselves. The whole map falls apart. But you can look at it and go, okay, here are where there's some higher levels of energy flow through certain archetypes. But yeah, the observer, you have that detachment, that ability to stand outside of culture and relationships and watch. But you get that no matter what personality type you are. You get that when you develop yourself internally and you develop your witness. The dark side of the observer, that the observer is a good magician. You know, they're on the outside and they can see what's going on, what the insiders can't see. But then they can also get very detached and they can get very isolated that way. And it can also lead to arrogance and stuff. Yeah, it's universal, but what I mean is each of those numbers, those nine archetypes are in all of us. Colin, would you be interested in checking out my new hip-hop EP? Yeah, send me the link. It's coming out in a few days, and I have Jungian ideas in the lyrics. Yeah, go ahead. Send it to me by, okay, either put it in the chat right here. See, who was it that was, the chat thing, we'll have to try. You either put it in there or just send me an email. Dana also sent me something in the chat and I wasn't able to retrieve it. But shadowtechalchemy@gmail.com. If you want to send it to me there, I'll listen to it and then I'll give you some feedback. Hip hop's not my thing though. It's like the one style of music I don't really listen to. I did for a period. I was listening to some of that LA stuff, the early 90s LA stuff, the Dr. Dre stuff. Some friends of mine in my band were listening to that all the time, and I did, and I was listening to the production quality of it and stuff like that. And I like some of the early 90s hip hop, the stuff that it was very arty, you know, the De La Soul or whatever, and Digital Underground, and there was a whole bunch of hip hop that made it in an arty way into music. But everything since then, I just think it's just gotten. But I know there's sub-genres and subdivisions of it and stuff. Yeah, send it over to me. I know there's arty hip hop and quality hip hop that's out there. I just don't go looking for it. But yeah, okay. So anyway, we talked today. It's now 10, so we should head on out. I want to tell you guys also something. I have a resources page with materials on there. I got like a shadow work reading list that's on the shadowtechalchemy.com website under articles. There's like a reading list, but it's not links to actual documents. I have an unpublished resources page that I'm starting to build. I used it for that last workshop I did. And so I got PDFs linked there. I got like a Robert Moore online library of audio files, of MP4s and stuff. Like the whole Robert Moore library is there. And I got, I just put the Alchemical Woman book on there. Let me tell you what's on here. Anyway, the link is shadowtechalchemy.com/resources. shadowtechalchemy.com/resources. It's unlisted, but there's a Terence McKenna lecture on alchemy that everyone should look at. There's the Hermetic Tradition by Julius Evola, which I'm reading now, which people should look at. There's a Persephone chapter of this book, if any, for women or anyone that's interested in the Persephone archetype. That's up there. Sheila Foster, Archetypes of the Sacred Feminine. It's kind of like the four archetypes like Robert Moore does, but for women. It's very helpful. The Alchemical Woman Handbook is up there now. That one I'm still, we'll see on that one. I got some other links on there, and I'm going to keep populating this with actual PDFs and actual stuff that you can download that I find on the internet. Oh, there's the link to the movie about Melissa is on there too, top link. That's not out publicly yet. So you guys are getting this stuff. Okay, where's OBS? All right. Anyway, so yeah, shadowtechalchemy.com/resources. This is all stuff that is on my notes. And that, yeah, so today we just kind of went through my notes, and we just talked in a sort of an organic way about being an alchemist in the modern world, and what's healthy and what's pathological. And we didn't really talk anything about technique or anything like that today, or any details about complexes or parts or the shadow or any of that stuff that I often talk about. We didn't do that today. We just talked about in general about this, kind of some tips on living this way. And you just basically have to curate your life. You have to intentionally curate your life. And anybody that's hearing this, I'm always open. You can always get on the show and talk. And if anybody has any questions, people can email me if they want to. I make myself available. I do coaching too. Sometimes that works for people. Sometimes that doesn't. If it does work for you, that's out there. You can suggest ideas, things you want me to talk about in coming shows. Send me a message saying, you want to hear more about this or that. If you know other people who are on the path that you think would benefit from this, send them here. If you go to the live tab on the YouTube channel, all the past shows are there. There's a whole lot of them now. And check out the shadowtechalchemy.com website. There's a lot of material. There's all my white papers, which I'm putting out, that are on the papers link. And there's just all kinds of material, media, all kinds of stuff is up there. So that's all there for you. So doing my best to encourage folks and to explain what this path is, and give you resources, talk you through things, demystify the path to whatever degree I can, point you in the right direction to whatever degree I can, mirror you, validate what you're doing. That's what my job is to support the community of essentially, we're calling ourselves modern alchemists, or whatever we want to call ourselves. Sacred life artists, right? So there we go. So everybody have a great week, and I'll see you next week. And thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all the great comments, Theo and Zach and everybody else that commented. And I will see you next week.